Hello everyone, in this tutorial we will use throttling to determine if a request to our API should be authorized or not, which sounds like permissions, but using throttling will allow us to control the rate of requests that a client can make to our API. And there are many use cases for that, and one of them, let's say you have an API where you providing a service or some information like a weather app, and you want to limit the amount of requests a user can make per day or per hour or even per minute, and you want to give a different restrictions between subscribed users or unsubscribed users, or some paid plans or unpaid plans or free plans. So that all can be achieved using throttling, and it's pretty easy to use, guys. So to get started or to demonstrate the use of throttling, we're going to use one of our applications that we created previously in this tutorial. There's no need to create another app. So one of the applications that we created previously was a cars app, where it holds some information about specific car. So if I go ahead and run the server, and please make sure your virtual environment is running. So I'm going to just run the server now and wait for the server to run. And after that, if I go to the Postman, and as you remember, guys, whoever watched that video about the cars app, this is the endpoint that we use to, or we configured to access the API. So if I perform a GET request, I'll get the information that's stored in our database or API database. So I can perform as many requests as I want. Okay, there's no limit for the amount of requests I can perform. So what if I want to throttle that, or want to control the amount of requests that a user, which is, for example, now I'm unsigned user or unauthenticated user, so I need to create a limit for unauthenticated users, like maybe they can perform just 5 requests per hour. Okay, so in order to achieve that, I need to add some settings to our project settings.py or API settings.py. So if I go back to the code, and inside REST framework dictionary, I need to add some configurations here for the throttling. Okay, so we have different type of throttling. So first we need to add what's called the default throttle classes inside the REST framework dictionary. So I'm gonna paste that. So what is throttle classes exactly? These are the classes that configure the type of throttling that we're using. For example, first one is a non-rate throttle, which is mainly for unauthenticated users, and the second one, which is the user rate throttle, is for authenticated users. The second thing we need to add is the default throttle rates, which determine the amount of requests per specific period of time. So for example, for a non-type, which is unauthenticated users, I'm allowing here 2 requests per day, and for an authenticated user, I'm allowing 4 requests per day. Okay, so let's go ahead and test that and see how throttling is controlling the amount of requests. But before that, I want to disable the caches here, and just comment it out, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So let's save this and then run the server and wait for the server to run, and then we'll go to the postman and perform a GET request to the API using the cars app endpoint. So I'm going to perform a GET request first, and as you see, I got back a response, and we are performing this GET request as unauthenticated users. So I'm not providing a token authentication yet, it's not ticked. So I'm going to perform another GET request, and as you see, a GET response back. And if I perform the third GET request, I'll get back request was throttled. Okay, so the API saw that I'm trying to perform a third GET request to the API and blocked that. So if we now perform a request as authorized or authenticated user, let's try it. So I'm going to perform first request, a second request, a third request, a fourth request, and then the fifth request will be throttled. And as you see, guys, I was able to control the amount of requests that allowed or authorized in our API. So that's great, but it's a quite general. And what if we want to apply throttling to specific parts of our API, like different apps or different applications? Is that possible? Well, yes, it's possible. And for that, we're going to use scoped rate throttle. So if we go here to default throttle classes, let's remove the previous two and add the scoped rate throttle. And after we add this, we need to specify some keys or the names of the scope that we need to use. So I'm going to use one for the cars app, and the other one I'm going to use it for the first app. So to do that, I'm just going to add here cars app, and underneath I'm going to add first app, and I'm going to leave the rates as they are, and then I'm going to save the settings. And after that, I need to go to the cars app view, and inside the cars API view, I need to define the throttle scope. So I'm going to add throttle scope equals, and then I'm going to put here the name of the scope, which is cars app. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Let me save this and do the same thing for the first app inside the views. Inside the car specs view set, I'm going to add the throttle scope, and I'm going to give it the name first app, and save it. So now we need to test this by performing requests to the API using the cars app endpoint, which is this one here, and see when the throttle will be applied. And then after that, we will perform a GET request for the first app, which is this endpoint here, and see when the throttle gets applied. So according to the settings that we made here, we have 2 requests per day for the cars app, 4 for the first app. So let's see if that's working. So I'm going to perform here for the cars app 2 requests. So I'm going to perform the first one. I got the data back, and the second one, and the response is still here, and then the third one should be throttled. and as you see, it's throttled. So if I go to the first app with the car specs, I'll perform a GET request. So first one was successful, the second one was successful, the third one, and the fourth one, and now the fifth one should be throttled. So as you see, the request was throttled. So I was able to control or throttle each application separately, which is great. One more and very important thing I need to show you guys. So if we come here and we close the server and then rerun the server again, and then go to the Postman and perform a request to the API, I'll see now I get a response, and if I perform another request I get a response. It looks like that the throttling has been resetted. Okay, and same thing if I go to the first app endpoint and perform request, I get a response. And that means if my application or my server restarts for some reason, all the throttling configurations or settings get resetted, and that's bad. The solution for that, which is recommended by the Django REST framework documentation, is to use caching, and that's what I commented out here, the cache configurations or settings. So there are many ways of using caching, and it's all in the Django documentations. You get like memory caching, file system caching, you get database caching, etc. So I'll leave a link in the description for the Django documentations about caching, and for the purpose of this tutorial I used the file-based caching from Django, and for the location I specified the location of my project folder, and after adding this settings or caching, we will see guys that even if I restart the server, Django will still remember the throttling data or the rate of requests to our API. So I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to close the server and rerun it. And now I'm going to go to the Postman, and here I want to perform first GET request and second GET request, and the third GET request should be throttled, which is what happened. Same thing goes for the first app. So I'm going to perform here 4 GET requests, and now it's throttled. Now I'm going to go to the server, close it, and then run it again, and then I will try to perform a GET request to the API. So if I perform a GET request here, I'll see it's still getting throttled, which means that Django remembered that from this IP address, which I forgot to tell you guys, throttling uses either the IP address of the client, if the client is unauthenticated, or the ID of the client, if the client is authenticated, to create kind of a reference key to this client to know or to control the amount of requests that this client has made to the API. So as you see now, after adding the cache, Django remembered that this client already requested 4 requests to the first app, so it can't perform any more requests, and that's very important in production. And I highly recommend, guys, that you check the documentation for the Django REST framework throttling, which is, I'm going to leave a link in the description for it, and the Django cache documentation. I'm also going to leave a link in the description for that. So that's it, guys, for this tutorial. Hope you learned something new, and if so, please hit the like button. That helps the channel. And if you're looking forward for more content like this, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. And until the next one.